Welcome to CSE 160, Introduction to Programming Using Python. Today's subject, or this video subject, is going to be getting started using the Jupyter, or Jupyter. It kind of looks like Jupyter, where the PI becomes PY to make it Python related. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at Jupyter notebooks, and we're going to see just doing a little house cleaning here. We're looking at Jupyter notebooks, and we're going to see what they can do for us. We'll be using 3 Python programming environments. Jupyter notebooks is probably the most interactive and the best for documenting. You can put you can put graphics and things into a Jupyter notebook and also have Python code in there, and that's pretty cool. It may not be the way you want to use Python ultimately. We also teach PyCharm Educational Edition, and PyCharm is a integrated development environment, or IDE, and in that you have a text editor, so you can write your Python scripts or programs or whatever you'd like to call them, and then submit them for execution. And PyCharm takes care of a lot of the background housekeeping for you, as does Python notebooks, the Jupyter system. The third system that we'll use is very nearly a command line system. It uses an environment called IDLE, which I forgot what it stands for. Integrated Development Language Environment. I don't know. I should know that. But IDLE, or IDLE, is more. It's command like, but similar to Python Notebook. You have the ability to just put a few lines of Python code in and execute those few lines and try that out and that sort of thing. Or you can have a text editor program, and IDLE can open that file that the text editor program has created. Say it's a Python program in that file, and run it, and you can debug it that way. So, once again, 3 environments we'll explore in CSE 160. The 3 environments are Jupyter notebooks, the PyCharm integrated development environment, and IDLE, the one that looks deceptively like a command line environment, but it can do more than it appears to, at first glance. So with this being Jupyter notebooks, let's take a look at that. Now, let me get rid of this folder, and we'll kind of create it again. The way I start Jupyter notebook is that let's see. I run Jupyter notebook from this Anaconda Navigator. But however you launch Jupyter notebook on your system, if you're on Windows, I think you pretty much have to use the Anaconda Navigator. If you're on other operating systems, you can install Jupyter notebook all by itself. But on Anaconda Navigator, you bring it up, and one of the tiles says Jupyter notebook, and then there's this launch button. See, you click on the launch button, and I'm going to put this back down. And you get an environment like this in a browser window, and it can be Microsoft Edge, Firefox, Google, or Safari. They'll all support this. Watch me be wrong about one of those. But so you have this environment here, and in my case, it's looking at directories here. You see these little folder icons that are down the side here, and then there's a checkbox next to them. So one of the things you might want to do with this is you may want to create a directory just for your Jupyter notebooks. So the way we do that is up in this bar over here. There's a little box with the word new and a down pointing triangle. So I click on that. There we go. And I go down to folder. And so when I pushed on that, I got a new folder down here somewhere called Untitled folder. So it'll be down a ways in your list of folders if you have a number of folders. But there'll be one called Untitled folder. And I'm going to check that and go up here on the left of the same row. It says rename, so I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it CSE 160 _ Jupyter, where the I in Jupyter is a Y. You can call it anything you want. So I've just created a folder or directory or whatever you like to call it in your brand of computer science. I click on the rename button, and you can see that CSE 160 Jupyter is up here. And now I can click on that, and it'll take me into that folder. So just wait a second, make sure everyone has been able to make the folder. Thank you. And I'll click to go into the folder. And now it says in here the notebook list is empty. So I'm in a folder, but I don't have any of these Jupyter notebooks, whatever they are, available to me. So I'm going to go up here to New, and I'm going to go to Python 3 IPY kernel. That's in parentheses. IPY means IPython, which was the name of the project from which Jupyter notebooks emerged. So I'm going to click Python 3. And, you know, I was in this environment here where I could see folders and that sort of thing. Now I actually have a Jupyter notebook open in a web browser tab, and I can go up here and you know, in the word untitled, I can select that and start typing something. Like I can call it oh no, I can't. How did I oh, you click on it, I'm sorry, and then untitled comes up already selected. So I'm going to call it notebook _0001, our very first notebook. I'm going to click rename. And now what's interesting about Jupyter notebooks is that you have these cells. Right now I have one cell, and I can add more cells. I have a little menu bar up here, and some of those same things are available as icons here. And so with these cells, I can do two things. I can put Python code in there, and that's probably what you're thinking I'm going to do, is to put Python code in there, and you'd be right. But first I'm going to put something else. I'm going to put some, in programming we often put in lines that are not actually instructions, but they're notes about the program. You know, they're meta information about the program, and they help the programmer if he or she ever has to go back and maintain a program they've written, or if someone else has to maintain a program they've written. Comments in the code can be really helpful to explain what the programmer is trying to achieve, how they're trying to achieve it, and other important information that can really make the code more reusable. And reusability in programming is something we will say over and over and over again. If you have some code that can do what you want, you really want to look very hard at reusing that code. It may not be the most efficient way to compute something, but if you have some code that computes something for you, and you can interface with it and give it information, and it can give you the information you want back, one wants to look favorably on that reusability factor, because productivity in programming and the use of programs for maintaining systems and networks and all that stuff, which is what a lot of you folks are studying. Productivity is important, and you may be doing some operations once a month, that you check on your system and clean up things and that sort of thing. And if something ever happens, it would be nice to have these comments in the code, because you can go in and it's like, oh, that's right, this uses that, or this is, this does that, or whatever. So, all that to say, there are at least two types of these cells. One where you can just put Python code and it'll execute it, and we will do that. And another type where you can put in special formatted information. And so in the form that they use is called Markdown Language. Now, you may have heard that HTML, which all web pages are made using, is called Hypertext Markup Language, and it's markup language because there are so many features in there that you can mark up the text that's in there and have it do a lot of things. Markdown language is more primitive and does fewer things, but it can do enough that you can embed you can embed images and pretty printed text, text with larger or smaller fonts and bold and italic and that sort of thing. So it can be very useful, and a lot of times, this Jupyter Notebooks business sort of has a favorite user in the data science field. They love to. They're ripping into data to find relationships that might indicate some new information, or they're a lot of scientific community does that, and Python is well loved in the scientific community. A lot of people learn to use it. So these Jupyter notebooks are great because you can put in pretty text and diagrams to go along with your programs. You may or may not do that. You may do less of that as a network administrator, or as the administrator of personal computers and server computers. But no, it's not a bad thing, and I'm just going to show you a little bit about it. One of the things we have to do is we have to look at the type of this cell. So I'm going to click in this cell and go down here and say, it says cell type. I'm going to make it a markdown cell. So this is now a markdown cell, and I'm going to go to this web page I have over here, which I will make sure you get the URL to. And this is a cheat sheet for this quote-unquote markdown language, and it shows you how to do all the things you want to do. So let's put in a heading 1 here. That'll be a pound sign with the text for the heading. Okay, so I think we can try this. Let's put in pound sign our first Jupyter notebook, and including Markdown. And I'm going to hit enter on my computer, return, whatever you want to call it. And there's this cheat sheet over here, and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab this URL, this Uniform Resource Locator, if you will, up here, and I'm going to put on here. I'm going to use square brackets, and I'm going to say Markdown Language cheat sheet. I'm going to end that with a square bracket, and then in parentheses, I'm going to paste in that web address. Okay. And now we can run this cell by clicking Run. And you see it turns it into a nice, formatted thing here. And there's the Markdown Language cheat sheet URL, so you can go see more about Markdown Language. And I don't want to major in Markdown Language, but I just wanted to show you that you can do that there. Now, this normally a cell can be a code, a code cell, and that's what we want. And what we might do here is let's create a couple lines of Python. We can create a variable, and we can create my variable 1 equals 7. My variable 2 equals 14.5. And how about my variable 3 equals how about A, B, C, D? Okay, I did all capitals. Now, we can run this cell by clicking Run up here, or the other thing you can do is you can hold down the Shift key and hit Return, Enter, or whatever you have on your keyboard. And so this is all then executed, and while I'm in this notebook, I can refer to these variables. For instance, I can say print my variable 1. And again, I can do Shift, Enter, or Return, and you can see it prints out a 7. So that's working there. Print parentheses variable names or text is is some. When we do a hello world program, you're printing out a text string that says hello world. Now I can create another variable here. My variable 4, I think I spelled that right, is equal to EFGH. Okay, and I can hit, well, I have 2 equal signs. Now, I can go back up into this cell and hit delete or backspace or what have you, and re-execute this, and it cleans up that error, and it says, okay, now you've got a variable 4. And so down here I can say print my variable 3 plus my variable 4, Shift, Enter, and it combines the 2 strings. Just to show you something in Python, when you use the plus operator and your variables contain strings, it concatenates the strings. That is, it connects the strings and turns them into one string. Of course, we can also look at things, this is more Python than it is Jupyter Notebook specific, but we can do things like print the type of a variable. So we can print the type of my variable 1. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do this for each of my variables. Print my variable 1, print my variable 2, and print my variable 3. And I can hit Shift Enter. I could hit Run. I'll do that this way this time. And the type of variable that I have here, the 7, my variable 1, belongs to the class called int for integer. And the 14.5, when I start putting in numbers that have fractional parts, that is a different class, and they're called floating point or float. So it says class float for that. And this letters combined in this fashion with quotation marks around them is a string. So there's lots we can do. Again, we can do things like we can copy and paste cells. We can split cells and merge a cell above, merge a cell below, move a cell up or down. I don't know what cell attachments are. Maybe those are files or something. I don't know. We can delete cells or cut cells. You have that. You have that ability. To do things that way. You can also, in the file thing here, we can save this, although it's already been saved. It has a name, so I'm not going to do save as. I believe it's already saved, and so I can do a close and halt. And you can see, as we come back to this original tab on our web browser, there's the notebook 0001.ipynb, meaning IPython notebook. IPython, again, being the older name for Jupyter notebooks. So if I click on that, it all comes back, and everything I had before is right here. And I could have included pictures and screenshots and everything in this Markdown language stuff here, and I didn't really even touch Markdown language. And if I click on Markdown language, that same cheat sheet shows up, and there it is, and there's things we can do here. And maybe during the course we'll demonstrate a few Markdown language features. This isn't a big part of the course, but we're always trying to promote good practice, and any way that you can document your code is is helpful. So that I would say is good practice. All right, once again, I'm going to close and halt, and I thank you for putting up with this thing, and try this stuff out. See if you can create a CSE 160 Jupyter directory, or whatever you'd like to call it. You get to manage the files in your system. Place you can put your notebooks, and remember that you can go in there and change a cell to Markdown language, in which case you can put in pretty printed, as we like to say, pretty printed documentation about your program. Okie doke. And I'll also do something really simple like this for PyCharm EDU and for the idle environments. All right, take it easy, and we'll be in touch. All right, bye.